everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Am and More presents The Journey to More, where we focus on the things that are going to build us in a soft skills manner. You know, me, I am the entrepreneur's attorney Jamila Moore, and I help you start, structure, and grow your businesses while legally protecting your business, your brand, and your profits. Don't let them steal your money, y'all. Now, today is very, very special. Not only is this person just a great person, he's also my friend. He also, will jump in and start coaching me. And he really is an expert and champion in an area where most of us have not given great thought to. And that area is emotional intelligence. He is the founder of the I Never Worry movement. He is the author of several books: I Never Worry, Emotional Intelligence, Black Intelligence, A Different Kind of Smart, 30 Days to Emotional Wellness. He is a trainer in the workplace. He does EI for healthcare. He does EI for all the different areas. This is something you don't want to miss and you want to tap in. DB, what do you have to say to the people?
Oh, just thanks for having me and putting me on this lovely platform and helping elevate the awareness that emotional intelligence. It's like I don't know if it's Visa or American Express to say you should never leave home without it. I don't know which one says it, but you should never leave home without intentionally being willing to practice emotional intelligence, because I think we all been living long enough to know that it's not a matter if it's going to happen. It's when it's going to happen, when your emotions get tested. And emotional intelligence, I like to say in its simplest form, is a couple of things. Is one, um reason why I think it's called emotional intelligence, because we all pretty much intuitively and intelligent enough, like we know what we should and should not be doing.
Right.
Like we know what we should and should not be saying. But when we get in our feelings about it, sometimes we be wilding out. And I think a lot of folks have learned in that high emotionally charged moment, we increase the chances of straining relationships, missing opportunities, having to go back and try to, fix, kind of Olivia Pope things after a while, right? And so my purpose, my intention is to get who's ever willing to listen in the space that they get real surgical and not letting their emotions overpower their intelligence.
Y'all, I didn't even ask a question and he didn't already just drop so much. I know y'all probably like, hold on, I need to listen, but let me go make sure I'm following him on IG, TikTok, emailing him. But this is the thing that we have to talk about, because this is the thing that sabotages our jobs. This is the thing that sabotages our relationships. This is the thing that could literally sabotage our life. Like, I think about the young man that is facing however many years in prison because he didn't manage his emotions in a way with all of the fame and everything, and then got that big DUI. Right. And so it's like so many times we miss the mark because we haven't done what you said and been intentional and surgical about going out and managing our emotions in an intelligent way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when we think about managing our emotions in an intelligent way, what are three things that you typically see people get tripped up on?
Number one, taking stuff personally.
Ooh.
Like that's the fastest way to switch you into like anybody can get it mode, right? Like if
Ooh.
if you take when you take something personal, like that you put yourself in high risk. The second, and not in particular order, but these are what kind of pops up. If you feel like someone is challenging your beliefs, right? Something that you believe in. And that happen. We're not talking about just spiritual or religious beliefs, right?
Right. Mhm.
It could be um, like for me, I have a strong belief in the color black, right?
Okay,
I wear
okay.
I wear black every single day. If you invited me to an all white party, the first thing my belief is going to do is I don't wear all white, so it means I can't go. I'm
Mhm.
not going. I ain't going. I ain't wearing no white. It's just my. That's what's gonna. And that's what's gonna happen. But because I know that it's my belief and not your belief, then I know that there's more thought management that goes around that. So I have to remind myself that number one, it would be very important to Jamila if I showed up. It's her birthday, or it's her
Yes.
celebration, or it's her $10 million acquisition deal, or whatever it is, right? She extended it out to me, number one. Number two, wearing white for one day doesn't change my belief about wearing black, but you have to be able to do the work on yourself. And so I'll round out with the third, which is one of the pivotal domains of emotional intelligence, is the lack of self-awareness. So not even really knowing where you stand, how you moving, what you doing. And a lot of people think they're self-aware and they're so far from it. And so you'll never be able to manage what you're not willing to measure. And so self-awareness, I think, would be the third. So I would say taking things personal when something bucks up against your beliefs, and lack of self-awareness is one of the fastest ways to get you in your feelings.
Listen, get out your feelings. Like that was one of the keys there. But I really want to hone into this piece around self awareness because, I'm talking to people who have entrepreneurial minds or are entrepreneurs or are leaders in some right. And if they are not self aware, it is going to lead to some damaging moment in their transition. I mean, or in their life. And so, how does one really go about becoming self aware outside of someone else? Is it even possible?
Repeat that question or make sure I heard it correctly.
So, how does one become self aware outside of like someone having to give them feedback? And the reason why I'm saying it in that way is because, and this could just be my experience and my trauma,
Hmm.
folks typically are resistant to feedback around things that they haven't heard about themselves.
Hmm.
Which is literally because they're not self-aware. So
Yeah, and so I think it's the framing of the terminology, right? And so I think when someone thinks self-awareness, now they take it personal, right? It feels
yeah.
offensive. But the first thing you want to do is defend, right, this concept of you don't know yourself, right? And it makes sense why somebody would believe that, because you're always with yourself, right? Wherever you are, there you are.
Mhm.
But the gem in that is that it's hard to see the picture when you sit inside the frame. So, although you are with yourself, you only have one perspective on yourself. So that's one piece of it. But I don't think, if you ask the question, how do you become self-aware or step into the day with a level of self-awareness, it's it's really governed by the law of intentionality, right? Like the law of intentionality would suggest that your growth, and
Mhm.
so in this context, your emotional growth is not just going to happen. Like you're going to have to be intentional about it. So every day when I get up, I'm intentional about my mood, my attitude, and my energy, which is why I am still able to show up no matter what's going on with me, because I can identify where I'm at and I can make my adjustments as needed. And if there, not if, when there are times when I just can't shake it and it's just I'm in a funky mood, most of the time you will never see it because I won't give you access to me at that time, because like the sign behind me says, Please vibe responsibly. So I understand at a deep level that I'm responsible for how I act, no matter how I feel.
Yeah.
And that is a high level of self-awareness. And so this is a long response to a short question. So I think we'll just put a statement in there and just say, be intentional.
No, that's so good. I like the law of intentionality, and you have to intentionally decide and develop your emotional intelligence on the day to day and decide on what your mood is. And I want to lean in here because I know your story, right? But the audience doesn't, because someone is saying, like, wow, he just woke up one day and was emotionally intelligent, figured it out. And like, yeah, you this was a journey for you. So can you talk
Yeah.
to us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is DB Bedford, from Oakland, California. Grew up in an area uh, called Brookfield. We were known as the Brookfield Jungle Boys,
Okay.
and I was not always emotionally intelligent at all. In fact, from the ages of like 13 to 23, I actually was a very violent individual. I started hustling in the streets. When the crack era hit America, I was part of that first group of individuals that experienced that, first
Mhm.
or second generation of folks that experienced it. So I was in the midst, I was really part of the problem.
Mhm.
And, the story is very deep and wide, but I will just say that, uh, being raised in an environment where at the time you only knew how to respond to conflict in one way, and which was violence, whether it be
Mhm.
physical or verbal, right? So we could
Mhm.
take it from the parental side, right? I grew up in a time where with black folks and my parents like, do what I say, hush your mouth, don't
Right.
talk to grown folks, just talk. Your opinion doesn't matter, and if you try to even bows, you know what I mean? So that's a trauma response that my parents didn't know about, we didn't know about, because when you think about it logically, smacking your child because they didn't do something that you didn't want them to do, or they didn't
Mhm.
behave the way you wanted them to behave, only teaches them to do the same thing. They can't clap back at you, so
Right.
at some point, it comes out in another way. And so I kind of feel like that's one piece, not the total, but between that, I'm just trying to give a slight overview between that and then being in a neighborhood where you had to fight on a regular basis simply because you part of this neighborhood and you run into people from the other neighborhood, or every time we capping on each other and it go too far, you got to get them up. And so I was taught to respond to things in that manner, my belief system. So as I got older, my decision making, since I was making it from that space, got me in a lot of trouble. And
Mhm.
um the very to the very last thing that I did that was totally out of pocket is I lost my temper and I chased somebody down the street and I tried to kill him. Um, and it's in my record, so I don't mind sharing it. And I went
Mhm.
to jail for it. But when I think about why I did it,
Mhm.
I was just in my feelings, right? Because it was because I paid him to put a roof on my house. He
Mhm.
put the roof on, he just didn't finish. He didn't like the gutters and didn't clean up. And
Yeah.
for those who know about the drug game or don't, in the drug game, the people we sold crack to, we call them dope fiends, right?
Mhm.
So, but just because you're a dope fiend doesn't mean you don't have a skill, doesn't
Yeah.
mean you can't have a business or a family. And so, as a matter of fact, we actually like doing business with dope fiends because you got products and services for deeply discounted. You know what I'm saying? You got
Right.
the
Right.
plug, you got the jug, but also in a lot of cases you get what you pay for. So he did what dope things do, right? He got his money, he did most of it, then he starts slacking. So there's a couple of lessons to pull from that. So number one, I knew who I was dealing with in the first place, right? And when he showed up exactly how he was supposed to show up, I get mad. And instead of me, since I got this discount, instead of me just paying and getting somebody to finish it up, my belief, right? I'm just kind of tying into our earlier conversation. My
Yeah.
belief about how I handle what I perceive disrespect or getting played bypassed all the logic, because there was a lot of logical things I could have done, but emotionally, it just charged me like, as soon as I see him, it's on sight, right? And then I can add another layer of it because I seen him a couple of times and I actually gave him a pass. Like, what's up, man? Oh man, I'll be over there on this day. I'll be over there on that day. And so I was actually felt like I was being cool. Because by this time in my life, you know what I'm saying? I had, you know what I mean? I had done way more for less.
Right.
So I'm a little bit older. I mean, I'm in my early 20s at the time, so I'm actually trying to be cool. But now, when he doesn't do what he says he's gonna do, now not only you playing me, you disrespectful. I can't let you get away with this. All this, these stories, this drama I'm creating in my own. I just started a whole Tyler Perry sitcom in my head, right? About what must happen when I sing. And so I always tell people, be careful. That's why you have to be, there's something we call the ant mindset, automatic negative thinking. You got to be mindful of that, because once I did that, and I felt like there was no option. And one thing
Mhm.
we do when we're emotionally charged, we feel like we have no choice, right? But you always have a choice. So my journey to being the EI guy, doing this EI performance coaching, literally comes from me not being emotionally intelligent, experiencing really tough consequences as a result. I've seen how many of my loved ones went to jail, got killed. I've seen so many marriages get ruined, relationships with kids. I've seen it just a lot of areas where, when you peel it back, it all comes down to people not handling their feelings correctly. And
Ooh.
even in the professional world, because I was a 4-time felon. I got my felonies expunged at some point, and then I went and I became an active peace officer for the Alameda County Probation Department. So I got one of those stories where I was really on the extreme of one side, and then I was able to, come out, to I lived through it, if you will, and was given an opportunity to do something better with myself, and I took advantage of it. And so I worked for the probation department for 17 years. But I was trying to get to a point, and then I'll pause and thank you for being patient with me. Working in the facility, I got promoted to management really quick. I ended up working like in internal affairs and things of that nature. And
Mm.
every time, and I was a compliance and standards supervisor. So every time one of our staff would get in trouble and we're doing an investigation, I would pay attention to it. Only came down because they was in their feelings. They didn't think we supposed to be
Mhm.
doing that. They didn't agree with this. They felt that. They would even say it. I just feel like, I just feel like this should be, it was just a recurrent, it's like, that's what I've heard over and over again. So by the time I discovered emotional intelligence, it just made sense. I just felt like I didn't choose emotional intelligence, it chose me. And so that's how I'm here and why I'm so passionate about it. And I'll do everything I can to give everybody an opportunity to experience the personal freedom that I have on a day-to-day basis, no matter what's happening with me.
Listen, no matter what's happening with you, if you can get a routine and a process together to be emotionally intelligent, you can live in another level of freedom each and every day. It's so interesting. Like, we come from opposite ends of the spectrum in the state, meaning like he's in Oakland, so that's Northern California. I'm in LA, that's Southern California. And so while he has the perspective of like growing up in the crack era, I have the perspective of like growing up in LA, like South Central LA, as
Man.
it's coming to an end, right? Surviving a drive-by at 5, right? Like,
Mhm.
and some of these things you push in the back of your head, but that's the reality of the environments that so many Black and brown children have to experience, whether it's in Chicago, whether it's in North Carolina, whether it's in Atlanta. And then we have some of us who emerge and we decide to be intentional and to deal with the trauma, figure out a path forward, and then try and live this emotionally intelligent life. Now, how do you navigate that experience when everyone hasn't done the intentionality work
Right.
and become more emotionally intelligent?
Well, I know I got a superpower. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like it just is what it is. Like so I don't have an expectation for people to handle
Mm,
things in a manner because you're just not there yet, and I get it. So, but to give a more tangible nugget on the how is that I am committed to understanding, right? So
mm,
before I go anywhere else in something, and when something bucks up against me, rubs me the wrong way, I don't agree with it, I don't see it that way. Instead of taking a position, I like to choose peace over proving a point, right? And
okay.
so whenever I find myself, it's one thing to have kind of an open discussion and we're just trying to share and we're figuring it out together. But I'm always looking to see, are you trying to take a stance? Or are you trying to take a stance on what you're saying and repel against what I'm saying? And if I find myself doing that, then I know that conflict is growing.
Okay.
So I get ahead of that and I'll neutralize my position. And then I start listening more deep just to understand where you're coming from. I want to see what you're standing on because I know that's your belief. And the reason why you're not budging is because a belief is something you're going to die for, right? When you believe about something, think about the things you believe in, right?
Mhm.
Like we get along fine until I start challenging your beliefs.
Yeah.
Right? When you think about your relationships around you, they stay in flow until we start bucking up against beliefs. Unless people understand what that is, that's where things start to slow down, separate. You really can't even put a finger on it, right? But it's like if you have a strong belief about anything, whatever it is, and I'm constantly talking about, we can just keep it light. I'm not a sports person, but think about people how they are about their sports teams, right?
Yeah.
It's because they have a strong belief about that team and maybe connected to where they come from or they played sport, whatever it is. So when you oppose that because you're from another team, right? You see it happen all the time. Like conflict starts to happen, even though nobody that's in conflict is getting paid for them teams, right? You really have no vested interest. They don't even know you exist.
I don't
But
even know
you
you exist.
but you will have a all out debate, discussion, everything because it's a belief that you have taken on. So I do my best. What does this all mean? I listen for what people are standing on, what they believe in. And if I want to make an effort to influence in any way, I have to acknowledge the thing they stand on. And they have to start to feel that I'm not no longer challenging it, then they will be open to see where I'm coming from. But as long as they feel like they're being challenged, I don't stand a shot, or you don't stand a shot. So I know I have a superpower. And that's one of many ways in terms of practicing emotional intelligence. There's levels to it. And that's why we call it EI performance coaching, because the deeper you get in it, the more of a top performer you will become. And so it just depends on what level. And so if you're in business, because I believe that that's what we're talking about, like to drive your success. It can only benefit you to take a study
Mhm.
in this area. Like it ain't gonna take nothing away from you. It can only make you a better business person by embracing and embodying, right, emotional intelligence and harnessing that power so that you can be as successful as your heart desires. Whatever it is that you want, you can get it through EI.
I'm so happy you kind of unpack this in so many different ways. Like, look for the point that they're standing on. That will help so many people. And then you always hear that listen to understand, but like, no, he's telling you like that's really the only way that you're going to be able, like, somebody has to have the higher EI or
Mhm.
EQ to be able to listen, to understand, to bring about peace rather than having a position and winning on a point. And
Mm-hmm.
then you kind of bridged into the entrepreneurs and the importance of emotional intelligence. And I think, a lot of what we're talking about here is transferable skills for all the different things in life. But specifically with entrepreneurs, one thing that they have to deal with a great deal is rejection.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people give up way too soon because they get rejected for so long. And so, what advice could you give to someone who's battling with that level of rejection?
Okay, so can I do something first? Can I frame this that I
Do
think
what you do.
I just want to make sure it's okay. And so there is something. This is a good nugget for anybody whenever they see this is timeless right here. So there is something that I introduced to the marketplace called your internal software, right? So your internal software, let's put it into perspective. Just think about the software on our phones and in our computers, right? Um, it's inevitable that there comes a time when the software gives you a notification to say, hey, you need an update, right?
Right.
And then it'll ask you, do you want to update now or do you want to update later? And then what do most of us do?
Update
Later.
later.
Later, right? Because you don't, for whatever reason. But then there comes a point where you got to do the update because the internet starts spinning, taking too long to come on, or a video won't download. It starts getting more difficult to use because it needs to give you the latest version of the software. It needs to get the bugs out. It wants that software to be at its optimum performance. So with your internal software, which I believe is how everyone shows up every day. And it has three elements to it. It's your beliefs, which we touched on a little bit. It's your values
Mm-hmm.
and it's your life experiences. This is how you process information. This is how you deliver information. And so the reason why I brought that up is because, and I'm going to get to the rejection piece of it. A lot of us are operating on old beliefs, outdated values, and hanging on to past life experiences. But you're showing up in today's time. Before I get to rejection, let's talk about my old belief of disrespect. Because I still feel disrespected in today, in the current situation I'm going through. There's a lot of disrespect happening. But I've learned to replace an old belief with new beliefs in my personal development of growth. So when it comes to disrespect, I still feel it. And I still sometimes want to respond in the manner that I used to. But I understand that is an old belief, and that is not the way to handle any situation in today's time. Right. So when I experience disrespect, instead of me doing what I know to do, I approach it differently. So let's go to the rejection piece of it. So if when you have been rejected growing up, if it's been a belief that rejection is equated to failure or you not being good enough, or when you asked for things as a young person and you were not only told no, you were chastised as well for even asking, right? Or if you had one of them old school parents, they pull up to the store, it was like, don't ask for shit, don't touch stuff, right? Like give you all this list of things. Now you ain't even walked in the store yet, right? So you get older, you haven't really heard it in a while, and then now you're an entrepreneur, now you're in business, and now you are making a pitch or a proposal, whatever. That rejection, when it shows up, if you haven't updated your belief about rejections, then all those feelings show up and you don't want to experience that anymore. So it slows down the amount of pitches you do, the amount of proposals you do, the amount of ask that you create, because you're still looking at rejection from an old belief, an outdated version of yourself. Instead of listening to the rejection, why did they reject you? Where could you improve? And how can you reposition yourself so the next person doesn't use that as a ground to reject? So you can learn it, you can take it and leverage it, right? And understanding, some people have used the cliche of no, right? No is not like next opportunity or something to that nature. They found a way to be like, okay, no doesn't mean that, it just means on to the next one, if you will. And also understanding like you don't get everything that you ask for. See, the other thing is an expectation. I'll pause after this. If you ask someone a question or if you ask for
Mhm.
anything, there are options to that answer. But we normally go in with thinking it's going to be yes. But it can be like
Mhm.
yes, no, or maybe. But think about it. Most of the time, you never really ask with the expectation is no. You hoping it's not no, but you only ask because you believe it's going to be a yes. Because if you thought it was going to be a no, you wouldn't ask in the first place. So when the no shows up, it's lightweight traumatizing, right? You like, you know what I'm saying? It's like it's a
Oh,
fear.
yeah.
It's the one thing you didn't want to hear. And so depending on how much work you've done on yourself, how much experience you have, you might not know what to do with that rejection. So it's always easier to shut down. And you know, with marketing and branding, if we use a kind of an analogy, you know, with marketing and branding, you know, they tell you that a confused mind will always say no. So when that rejection comes, it becomes confusing. It becomes a conflict. It's easier just to shut down than to unpack, reverse engineer, and figure out why did you why right? You rejected me, but why? I applied for this loan, I didn't get it. Why? Oh, your credit score is not up. Okay, boom. What else? Here's the 5 things you need to do. Boom, I'm on it. And in the process of improving that, I become a better person. My character gets built, right? So when I show up the next time, I'm more confident because they already told me I just need to get my weight up. I need to get my credit score up. I need to put some more money in the bank. So, but you don't want to. Most people don't know to do that, so they just accept the no. They don't accept it. They just hear the no, and then they start giving meaning. It's the meaning they give it that starts to
Ooh,
change the
good.
trajectory of where they're going.
Mm, so much said there. One, we got to learn to leverage our rejection. The second thing I want to point out is most people retreat when they're rejected when you should respond to gather the data. And then that kind of connects back to what we were talking about earlier with self awareness. Like, if you can't face rejection, you're probably not aware of some things that's causing you to be in your feelings.
Facts.
Right. So it's all connected. And then how you talked about a lot of what we do is rooted in what we believe, our life experiences, and then our values. How do we go about identifying our beliefs and thinking through when we need to shift them? Because that's a whole nother thing. But yeah.
So I think that the easiest place to start is the areas of your life that you struggle the most in. So, say if you struggle with money, right? Then you have to go back to what is your belief around money, right? How you save it, how you spend it, how you invest it. Like, what have you been taught about it? What is your like? So for me, you know, I'm transparent. So someone who started hustling at such a young age. So at the age of 13, I got $65 for my birthday. And I took it to the trap house. We didn't call them trap houses back then, but in today's time, it would be a trap house, right?
Mhm.
And basically got a pack and flipped it, right, at 13. And so when I was 10, I used to go to the gas station on 90th and Bancroft in Oakland, me and a bunch of little knucklehead youngsters, and we go get to the gas pumps. Everybody try to get the claim they pump. And then when you pull up, we'd be like, "Can we pump your gas for a quarter? Can we pump your gas for this?" And as soon as I would get my first quarter, I'd go into the Tribune box. Believe it or not, there used to be newspaper boxes and stands. I don't know how old people are going to be listening to this, right? That you put the quarter in, I would open it up and take all the papers out and sell them, right? I am saying that to say my experience with money has been like always in hustle mode. Like I could flip it or I could do this with it and that with it, right? Not the typical work this many hours for it in exchange for it. Mine was always, how do I judge? How do I? So I learned how to make money fast, which means I learned how to spend money fast, right? So old belief. So then I get older and I start working and now only get paid every 2 weeks. But guess what hadn't changed? My
Wow.
old belief on spending money. And even today, I still struggle. I don't want to call it a struggle because I actually enjoy the way I spend money, right? I'm not there, but like if I if I run to the grocery store right now, the last thing I'm thinking about is how much anything costs and what I'm supposed to get. I might go in for one thing, I come out with whatever I want, right? And I worry about it on the back end. It's not always the smartest way to do things, but it is my belief around money. And so I'm just saying that um in the context of how do you know, but if I start not being able to afford things, right? Then I have to ask myself, because you don't have a problem earning it. So where's the problem at? The problem is how you spending it. And why do you spend it like that? Because I've never adjusted my old belief on the flow of money, right? Because it's different than it was back then, right? And so that to me, how you start to reverse engineer and make the adjustments, just look at the areas in your life where that's not in flow, right? So if it's in your relationship, right? What is it about how you are communicating, how you're receiving it? Like, what is it about it that's not in flow? If it's your health, right? If it's, a lot of people will be like, people find out I'm vegan, they be like, "Oh, what do you eat?" Or, and how you do it. And I'm like, I eat everything else but meat, right? Like, what I'm saying? Like, I don't eat animal products, but I still eat. But their belief is like, oh, you ask them to taste this, and I ain't tasting that. And I'm like, oh, wow. No disrespect to people who eat, but I'm like, but you'll knock down that dead animal. But
Ooh.
you want to try this cauliflower. Okay. But it's because your belief is so strong that somehow, some way, vegan or vegetarian, it's whatever you've been taught about it, right? But then your health might be suffering because you got too much meat, too much red meat, too much whatever, and you don't want to change it because you've been getting fed soul food your whole life. You think that's the only, you don't even want to look in that area when you
Yeah.
might be trying to give it up. So I try to give it some different examples of where people could start, how it could be real to you, right? Like not just in philosophy, but like, wherever things are not in flow in your life, wherever it's not in flow, that's a good time to say, I might need to update my internal software in this area right here.
Well, we're getting back to self-awareness again.
which is just one of the 4 domains of emotional intelligence. We're not going to unpack all of them, but you can just see how powerful that one alone. And there's 3 other domains and other supporting um, pieces of strategic insight that helps people move themselves along the way when it comes to EI.
Listen, because I'm like, in order for you to identify the areas that are not flowing, you gotta have some sort of awareness. And you really pushed me. I'm like, dang, what has been my experiences with money? And it's so interesting, our stories. We, communicate frequently in a sense.
Right.
But I didn't know you basically started your first business at 13. Or maybe even right? You
Yeah.
started your first business
Yeah.
at 10.
Yeah.
I started my first business at 13,
Yeah.
right?
See?
So I was in school. I was like, I got some money, bet. Let's go to Smart and Final.
Yes.
Let's buy some candy. I'm gonna start
Yes.
selling candy at the
Yes.
school.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And so that has kind of been my thing. And it's been that like hustle mentality in a sense, right? And so now I'm like, I need to check how I'm doing things. Am I still in that hustle mentality? Like, you gonna get these legal services? Bet you bought these legal services.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? Now
right.
let me flip it.
Which doesn't mean there's nothing wrong with what we're doing, but we can only benefit from taking a look at how we doing because we've been doing it. So, which makes sense why we are doing the type of work that we're doing and the manner of what we're doing it. When we talk about performance and improving, right? So, back to the thing about being intentional. But like I said, you cannot manage what you're not willing to measure, right? So, so say if we like our desires to be millionaires, right? There's hella millionaires out here. Why aren't we there yet? Well, it ain't because it's a shortage of money. Right? It ain't because we not dope at what we do, right?
Mhm.
It ain't because it's not a need for what we do. So what are we doing or not doing? But that's the self-aware. You got to be able to sit back and be like, why is this person over here or this group of folks over here living the way that I know that I deserve to live? What is the blockage? What is the thing that's stopping that flow? And that's us taking an honest look at ourselves. And to be honest, in all transparency, I'm trying to get better at not saying be honest, because then you're like, well, then are you lying all the other time, right? Transparent mean I'm sharing more than I would normally share. But this morning when I was taking my morning walk, I did say to myself, I need a few million. You know what I'm saying? Like I need to stop playing because I need the freedom that comes with that. And I like being in a position to serve and help others when they can't figure it out. And so I was just saying to myself, um, and there's a meme that goes around that says that it's like when you're being lazy or something like that, it's kind of disrespectful for those that believe in you or something to that nature. And I know where they're
Mm.
trying to go with it, but I think for me, it's like when I'm not in my full potential, though, I'm not able to serve at the highest level that I was put here for. So therefore, in terms of, my spiritual connection with the universe and God and the higher being, am I actually serving at the highest level when I'm in chill mode or I'm kind of doing stuff? You know what I mean? And so being driven by, I probably got off track a little bit, but this is important. Being driven by purpose, right, is also how you practice emotional intelligence at a high level, because when you are aligned with your purpose, your core values, right? You understand your gift. When you know your purpose, then it's very easy to choose purpose over pettiness, right? Because
Mhm.
when the why is strong, the how becomes easy.
When the why is strong, the how becomes easy.
Easy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. You heard us? We're like little twins over here. Yeah. Listen, I've taken up so much of your time. We could talk about this stuff all day. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave with the audience on emotional intelligence, what they need to do, how they need to connect with you to start this journey?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just tap in. Social media is where I'm gonna, you'll always get an authentic piece of me on my social media, which is I Never Worry on Instagram, lowercase I Never Worry. My Facebook is full. Just Instagram is probably the best place to catch me. My website is ineverworry.com, and I'm going to be releasing a book soon. It's called The Five Emotional Laws of Human Nature. And it is my original sequence, right? I call it the secret sequence of how you can go about your day intentionally practicing emotional intelligence. Because there's three levels of knowing, right? Of knowledge, three levels of knowledge. And that's the knowing. So we tell you something, you're like, oh, I ain't know that. Okay. Now you like Biggie Smalls. If you don't know, now you know, right? Then there's the knowing how. Okay, you told me about it, but shit, how do I do it? Right. But the thing that most people miss out on is the knowingness, who you need to become, the state of being to be able to harness the information that you have. And so, how many times have we tried to go on a diet or start an exercise program? It's because you're like in human doing mode and not human being mode. So it's like I started running recently. If I looked at running as a task, I would have stopped running. But now because I view myself as a runner, then it's part of my being. So now I feel conflicted if I don't run. So one of the ways to get you in a space to perform at a higher level is to govern yourself by these 5 emotional laws of human nature. Simple sequence that you could pay attention to throughout the day to put you in the right position. Because again, like we said in the beginning, emotional intelligence, you actually know exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But when you get in your feelings, they get partly cloudy. The 5 laws of human nature will help you maintain your clarity. So it could be on the lookout for that. But other than that, I ain't hard to find. Anybody on the call who actually wants to find me, this is we in Atlanta, Google and AI. Like it, you want me, you can find me, and I'm here for you. And I thank you so much for the invite this morning and giving me space on your platform. And yeah, I'm gonna pause there.
No, I appreciate you for coming. I appreciate all of the gems that you share, not only with me, but with everyone. I think we all got homework to do. I think we all had to lean in and make sure we're connected with you. And one thing I want to hit on, which is my lane and my purpose and my intentionality, is he's talking about the 5 EI.
5 emotional laws of human nature.
5 emotional laws of human nature, right? And so I just gotta lean in here as an attorney, as a business strategist, to really talk to you guys about that's his intellectual property. His millions probably just came out right now,
Yeah.
right? And
Speak on
so
it.
you know what I'm saying? He works with me, so he knows how to protect it. But like you all have to really start leaning in to those millions, those $1,000 ideas, those $1 billion ideas that flow from your head. And when you don't put yourself in a position to be in flow because there's blockage, because there's old belief systems, because you haven't really developed your EQ, then you're not able to really live with the level of freedom to help the people you're supposed to help and to just do the things that you're supposed to do. And so if you are feeling, nudged, you want to make sure that you connect with me at I Am and More on all social media handles, or go and sign up for a free discovery call at IamandMore.com. I'm literally helping people walk through living out their dreams and protecting that dream while they're living it out. Listen, if you
Well,
take
let
nothing
me let me add, let
else,
me add to that real quick. The only
okay,
reason why you're not protecting your business or your assets is because you don't believe you need to. That's it. Until you do, right? And what she is trying to do is get you ahead of the game. We gotta get out of the space that we wait for something to happen, and then all of a sudden it becomes real. We don't need a "I told you so" moment when it comes to protecting your business. And so, if you are struggling, if you're still doubtful, I'm telling you, somewhere along the way, you have decided that you don't believe that it's necessary. But there are tons of case studies that will show you that it is much, it's like, it's better to get caught with than without it. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like from the old street, like you know what I'm saying? Like if you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. So if you're wrestling with your decision, just ask yourself, Why don't I believe I need protection? And start unpacking from there. And after a while, you'll realize, it makes absolutely no sense not to be protected. I bet you got car insurance, right? I bet you got insurance on your phone. You got all type of other insurances that you pay into that you ain't having accidents every day. And so you got to look at it in that same type of perspective, right? Because that's how you'll make the decision, and um you won't hold yourself in bondage if it's something that you actually really need. You do. And I know because I was one of those people.
You got a whole little commercial about it. Oh man, no,
Yeah,
thank you for that, DB. I'm gonna definitely have to replay that back and add that to my whole little system.
yeah, but it's
Roll it
true.
out.
I was him. You know what I'm saying? I was him. So I get it.
Yeah, you change your belief system, you change your life, and you get access to things you probably didn't even know. And that's why we talk about like I am and more, like I'm journeying to more, because there's always more. And you just have to continue to tap in and take the time and be quiet to, do the work and really like lean into that law of intentionality as you grow in life. So y'all, I appreciate y'all. I done kept him here for so long. I know he got things to do. We will see you all soon, and make sure you are connecting with the EI guy. See you soon.
Peace.